It's 4 o'clock, and I'd like to call this Personnel and Human Services Committee meeting to order at 4 o'clock, and on the first day of spring. Doesn't feel like it, but it's the first day. Roll call.
Ryder. Durancer.
Here.
Krieger.
Yes, ma'am.
Dept.
Here.
Kunin.
Here.
Lutz.
Here.
Harris.
Here.
Four present.
Minutes of February 20th, 2018. What's your pleasure?
So moved.
Support.
We have motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public input. Anyone from the public wish to speak, please come up, state your name and your address, and address the board.
Thank you. My name's Chuck Groya. Some of you guys remember me from a couple of years ago. What I want to ask the commission is, well, let me give you a little background. I was here about 3 years ago, and I came related to a death during the ice fishing season in what is affectionately known as the Hot Ponds area, which is the warm water discharge at Consumers Energy. You know, a lot of folks don't realize that's there, and throughout the entire ice fishing season, there's always open water in that area, and unfortunately, every now and then we have an accident. There's been 3 fatalities in that area that I'm aware of, as long as I've been fishing anyway. And what we started in 2015 is when a gentleman passed away in there by the name of Mr. Puro. I got together with some local and state agencies, along with Consumers Energy and their attorney, and we came up with an action plan to try and prevent the accidents and reduce the rescues that happened in there. And the action plan has been in place and going on, and over the last couple of years, there hasn't been good ice to do a measurement on how well we're doing. But we put warning signs at all the road ends, the boat launches, the bait shops. I've got it on maps and GPSs and everything you could possibly think of, but it's just not enough based on the data from this year. There was at least 10 rescues in there this year. Fortunately, nobody passed away. I don't even know if anybody was hospitalized, but 10 rescues is way too many. And what I'm asking the commission for is a proclamation or resolution, and I got a copy of some notes here. I'll pass it around, and thanks to Jim and Rebecca for making me some copies yesterday. But what I want to do is go to some of the federal agencies, back to some of the state agencies and the consumers, and say we need to start again and figure out what we need to do more of and better to try and reduce the rescues in there and save a couple of lives. I've gone to already Wisner Township, Hampton Township. I'm going to calling tomorrow, and asking for support just to say, hey, we think Chuck Groy is on the right track. Please give him some help. Organize some meetings, whatever you can do to help him and help everybody else resolve this issue, or at least minimize it the best we can. So that's what I'm asking for. And hopefully you guys can help me out with that. And I'll use it to get the stakeholders involved and use it for a little extra power to see if I get something going.
Commissioner Harris.
Questions?
Mr. Groya, so nice to see you again. We barely know each other.
Yeah, right. Only since what?
You know, all these people, there's mostly the same people always fish. Is it, I mean, do you think, I mean, in your opinion, do you think it's just because they don't know where it starts, or what's it, I mean, because everybody knows the Hot Pond's there. I mean, I don't know anybody doesn't know it's there. But,
Thank you. When I talked to the Hampton Rescue guys last night, they said it's mostly people from out of town.
Yep.
It's very rare is that anybody from the area that goes in there. They come here, they heard good ice, man, they're really catching a walleye, and it's worse in the years when there's good ice versus the years when the ice might be iffy, because a lot of people don't want to wander all over, but they come here and say, oh, it's good ice, we can just go anywhere, and they drive right in there not knowing it's there. You know, like I said, there's signs at the boat launch and here and there, but they're small, they're hard to see. In my opinion, there's not enough and big enough signage at Consumers, but you know, that's all part of the going forward with this process. But most of the people are up and out of town.
so if you know, with the resolution, I mean, you hoping to put something, or would you put something in the, can you put something in the water itself? Or?
Would be the ultimate. Again, we have to get the Coast Guard involved, but My philosophy is, let's get proactive instead of reactive. Wouldn't they rather have something in there to try to save somebody's life than going in there and trying to rescue them later? I know they take buoys in and out throughout the year, and maybe they could convert one of those buoys for the winter to set in there, or maybe put a permanent one in there, because it's not a high boat traffic area. There's very few boats go in there. You always got sailboat buoys and, a variety of different buoys that are always out there in high traffic areas. So that would be the best idea. Whether or not I can make that happen along with Mr. Kildee and whomever, but.
Yeah. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Yep, sure.
Commissioner Krieger.
Thank you. So I think some of what we need to be able to do, I don't think there's any issue with us not being able to put a resolution together, but I think we're really going to have to lean on the Army Corps of Engineers, being that we're dealing with navigable waters.
Yep, yep.
And I think one of the hiccups that I was told was if you put something out there and you have somebody who isn't paying attention and they end up running into whatever's telling them not to come in that area, who's going to be responsible for that? So I think that's a biggie. And I know the DNR.
Yes, it is.
With George, was like, oh yeah, we're going to do this, but, it's called chin music.
Yep, those are all things we're going to see if we can work around. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. Maybe everybody that's going to meet is saying tough rocks. If they're that dumb to go in there, so be it. I've had people
Yeah,
tell
but
me that.
These are
but
out-of-towners, like you said.
I don't go for that philosophy.
That are ending up in trouble. It isn't our locals.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
I would like, yes.
I noticed a lot, State Park area, and there were a lot of boats out there this year. I drove by a couple times, so I think if we get something out of State Park, it would be good as they're heading out on the ice to remind them.
Well, they did have one small sign, but for some reason it seemed to disappear. I don't know where it is. I contacted them a couple times this winter about doing a little more than they were doing, and I guess I didn't notice much happen. So,
That was at the state park?
yes. 'Cause I've seen a lot of people come right from State Park, and they'll shoot right across in front of my house because I don't live too far from Ernie. And you'll watch them go right between the island and shoreline, just assuming that everything's safe and everything's fine, and it's not. And it rarely is over in that area. So,
You undoubtedly have the support. I think we should refer this to administration, possibly to draft a resolution.
Sounds good.
Is that a motion?
Yes,
And do we have support?
Kim.
Did you get that? So we have motion and support, yes.
I just have one more question.
Sorry, go ahead.
How big are the current signs?
the ones at the road ends, most of them are, I believe, 18 by 24. So about like that. And, they have a nice picture of the area, and it says danger, warm water area. The first signs were massaged by a couple of attorneys and whatever to try to make it legally, I don't know the exact terminology, but it was a pain just getting the wording on the signs the first time around. But again, in certain areas, they were supposed to be bigger and more of them, and they're not all there. At least my understanding on what was going to happen.
Yeah, just to comment, thanks, Chuck, for your concern for your fellow fishermen and women.
Thank you.
And trying to keep their recreation safe, and also conserve tax resources and the danger of rescuing people who get in trouble on soft ice. Have you, when you were in the other day, I didn't have an opportunity for us to discuss, have you interacted with the Coast Guard yet?
I called them, they were supposed to return the call, but I basically just called them this year to ask how many rescues they performed this year. I haven't sat down with them on any kind of an action plan yet. Like I said, I want to get all these resolutions or proclamations together and be able to say, hey, I got support from the community, let's all get together and see if there's more we can do. Hopefully there is.
Yeah, and I think Commissioner Krieger made a good point in that Corps of Engineers would be involved, probably with the Coast Guard, and make sure
Oh, yeah.
that these obstacles didn't, or these signage didn't create an obstacle.
Right, that's, and I know that was a concern in the
hazardous.
past, and then we'll see if we can work through it this time too.
Okay.
Hopefully we can.
Thanks, Chuck.
Anyone else? We have a motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, public comment?
Yes, Board, Bay County Board. My name is Brad Eddy. I'm a resident of Williams Township, which I believe, Vaughn, is your township. I'm the president of the Eddy Brothers Auto Parts Corporation, which is in Ernie's Township.
Good call.
I have multiple issues to bring to this board that have been disturbing to me that happened in this county. It's come to my attention that many records from this county are at the Bay County Historical Society. I've seen the contract where the Board of Commissioners took these records and give them to the Historical Society based on their future resource historically to properties throughout this county. So upon finding and being directed by the county treasurer, the Township of Caucaulin, I went to the Bay County Historical Society where I met with a Ron Bloomfield at the time. Ron Bloomfield was eager, and he told me that these records exist, but they're down in a basement and it's dangerous down there. So Ron I give him a couple days. He brought me some of the information that I had requested on my family's property. So he gave that to me, charged me a small fee. Well, when I got that information, it meant a lot to property transfers of a property that's been in my family for 55 plus years. So when I go there and I get these first couple documents and I look at the records, and the record books look to be in pristine condition. But after that point, I FOIA'd thinking it was a government entity. I find Bay County Historical Society on all my taxes. No matter where I pay taxes in this county, it seems we fund them. So we as citizens and with the county commissioner's contract with the Historical Society should be able to research these records. I've heard throughout this building and other things, it is not easy to get to those records at that Bay County Historical Society. So what I'm trying to get at here is I have emails, I have contracts that the county commission has with the Historical Society, and I made copies for Jim, Amber, along with the board, of the president of the Historical Society denying me those records. He said it was a fluke in this email that I even received the records that I did. It's not a fluke when you then have your family's attorney subpoena them to get an outrageous bill for those records that would have solved a court case 3 years ago. So it's almost like obstruction of transparency is what I feel is going on at the Bay County Historical Society. I think it's something that this board should look into with their contract. If the contract is to view these records at the Historical Society for the public, you pay for them to hold on to these records. If they don't allow you to look at them or the citizens to look at them, we should have it right across the street here at the Wirt Library. If they can't handle this kind of pressure that gives the public the history of every property in this county, all that they did here is give a whole bunch of excuses. And I think you'll all be appalled, and I'd like all of your feelings on this issue. And I think this issue should be raised to all who want to gain benefit to historical books. These are books that belong in a library. These are books that any person should be able to view their family history on a property or their family business in my case. Now, there's been a lot of stuff I've worked with Jim on here, Mr. Barsha, and Miss Laura Olgar. There's been different aspects of what I feel is blocked information through this county on these properties. When I go through this building has some very intelligent people, including Register of Deeds Brandon Kraus, Michael Neese up in Equalization, even Mr. Barsha and Ms. Davis have been great for my family's attorneys to work with, and my own. But when it comes to the wrongdoing that's been done to my family, it's very disturbing that the Township of Caucaulin seems to have gotten some deeds where deeds shouldn't have been with no registered surveys. there appears to be actors involved here, and there's pollution next to the property in question. And I've shared that with Mr. Barsha. The DEQ seems to not look at the facts that there could be possibly radioactive materials next to my family's junkyard. Are my kids able to play in a ditch? Are my kids able to ever do what I did as a kid on that property? And I think it's this county's responsibility to look into this. And I've brought it to people. Jim Barsha has been deadheaded at the DEQ when he's asked. So has Mrs. Laura Olgar. That's disturbing when we all should know. Is this material okay? It's blocking 35 acres of floodplain. The people who are involved in it, they seem to not have no charges on them. I don't understand when, for 3 years, 35 acres of floodplain can be disrupted, can hurt other people due to that, and get away with it. This county should be concerned about it, and I have brought these concerns to many different people in this county. I have thousands and thousands of documents on this issue. I would love for people to, in this county, as politicians, be policed just like citizens are. Do your job. Do it with integrity. Care for the citizen and the health, the welfare of all. All the people downstream of that place could be getting chemicals that we have no idea where they're all from. We do know through testing I've done, some of it's oil field materials. I've sent that to Mr. Barsha. The other materials came out of the S.C. Johnson area off Wilder Road. When you know the history of that property, which I've FOIA'd, it's disturbing to know those materials weren't okay to sit on S.C. Johnson property, but they're A-okay to sit next to the Cucaholen River and Eddie Brothers Auto Parts, where my family ran a junkyard. But I'll tell you, we cared for our environment, and my dad would never do what these people have done or disturb neighbors, be a nuisance. 35 acres of floodplain that should have had a permit through not just the DEQ, but the Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, Mr. Joe Rivette. All of those people should be involved in something of this standard. I've seen the project, I've seen where the materials have came out of. That area of S.C. Johnson is a drainage ditch. If it isn't okay for S.C. Johnson to have that material on their property, how can contractors pull it out of there and go and dump it in a floodplain and get paid by our government for it? I don't understand that. But I think it's something that may be happening in other parts of this county. And that's disturbing that contractors that need to be taking their materials to a landfill where we know it's not going to hurt the public welfare. Over money, this is a greed issue. Greed is not healthy for our community. If you can't grow with truth and transparency, it's not worth growing. Not at all. And I feel that across the board here. I don't care what this county's doing, what this city's doing. You should care about what you're doing to the citizen over the people with the money or businesses that it's controlling. There's a lot of things that are getting pushed through Cucaholen right now, Bangor. I tried to bid on a grant job in Bangor. Very disturbed that the supervisor in Bangor and the supervisor in Cucaholen Township have the views they do, but there's no room for socialism in this county. We need to take care of our people and treat them all like individuals, care about the individual capacity they are, whether it's business or citizenship. We should have rights. When we come to law enforcement with a concern, don't just think we're lying. How did we get the information we're bringing to you? I videotaped it. I took photographs of these people. I got threats from the people who me and my family are suing, threats that I think law enforcement should take into consideration. We have a whistleblower who knows that contamination was there. I don't know what more. I've shared that voicemail with Mr. Barsha. When it comes to that, this individual who whistle blew on these contractors, he should be looked at, and how's this? Along with mine and my family's, we are dealing with a magnitude of pollution that needs to be cared for when it's dealt with. If this has any type of repercussions to anybody health-wise, we need to care what's done with it. I mean, in the amount of information I have thousands of documents, thousands, not just one or two people. I mean, I wouldn't be stating what I did. I had an environmental person, Sean Robinson from AKT Peerless, come, and we were doing a phase 1 and phase 2 environmental to the property so me and my wife could purchase the property. We came up with many deed issues, many survey issues. When Sean seen some of the dumping going on in the wetlands, he told me to call Robin Oming at the DEQ immediately. So the next morning, first thing I did, called Robin Oming of the Department of Environmental Quality. Thought, he was gonna save the county. Well, I videotaped everything. I took soil sample, found out that the soil sample was very high in a lot of contaminants. Red flagged by AKT Peerless. They had their hands on the sample. They read what was in there. They told me whoever did this was going to jail. Well, if whoever did this, if jail's a possibility, I'd like to see them treated like me, because I know if I did this, all of you, I would be in jail. But there's some in this community who seem to be above the law, and I don't believe anybody should be. I think that everybody should be treated fairly. If I did something wrong, please treat me like it. I mean, I haven't done anything wrong other than my due diligence looking into buying a property that's been in my family's possession for over 50 years. 50 years, not changing hands. But somebody disrupted the title, somebody got surveys into deeds that weren't ever registered. That's not something that's common in this county. Talking to Brandon Krause at Register of Deeds, normally when somebody does property purchases, you register your surveys. Especially when you're dealing with 80-some acres, why would you pay that much? Why wouldn't you get title insurance? Well, these people did not. Come to find out in court a couple weeks ago, my uncle who sold the property never even seen the surveys, so property that wasn't titled in got shoved through without my uncle, who was guaranteeing title, ever seeing it. Well, this is a big deal to us because it came through the county. That's how it turned into good title. But the title companies don't see it as good title, but yet it made it through the books without property transfer affidavits. Both my family's attorney, the corporation's attorney, they all feel there's been federal laws and state laws that have been violated here. I am asking for the county to do an investigation into all of this, all of these actions. Make sure that we're taken care of as citizens. Don't worry about me. Worry about the people downstream. Worry about the other property owners around the area. I know that Joe Rivette is CC'd on many documents to do with the DEQ and these violations. He told me 2 days ago, all his DEQ documents go in the trash. Well, why don't they come to you guys? Why? Why don't you guys see them? Why should DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, sending violations to somebody that we're supposed to trust? He says he don't deal with that. He don't deal with wetlands. He don't deal with floodplains. What does a drain commissioner do? He don't deal with that stuff. Why is he here? Who does he take care of? Who do you guys take care of? I hope you take care of the citizens before corporations. That's what I hope. I hope to see it. Granted, my mother's corporation's involved here, and my wife and me plan on owning it, but there's been threats that have been made, and they came through the judicial system in Bay County. These threats, I will share with any of you. They're recordings that were done at the Township of Cawcolin, a voicemail threat left by one of the individuals to me, threatening me, my wife, my father-in-law, and my mother and brother. Would any of you take that? No. I think you guys would do just what I'm doing, stand up for him. My dad's gone. I'm the next sibling down. I'm the one that wants to keep the business going. There's enough people in Caucahoun Township that don't want to see that. Why? Because of what I'm telling you people. I think Judge Gill and Judge Sheeran have seen some of the light here, and I believe that they were not known about some of the issues at hand here because we weren't allowed to speak at court. My family was represented pro per for a long time. When you look at the poor, you look at the wealthy, we shouldn't be looked down upon for being a junkyard. I was proud of what my dad did. There's people at the Township of Caucahoun, they want to call it something else. I'm not ashamed. I don't think I should be. My dad, he never had any DEQ violations around him. So when you're carrying on a legacy and somebody wants to put something bad on you, why? Why? To make them look good. That's not cool. It's not right. I'm willing to sit down with any type of law enforcement, what's in any CAD, in anywhere. I have enough documentation to share with all. And I know both Jim and Laura they tried to help me. I don't know if they contacted any of you, but it's disturbing that they shared their emails with me to the DEQ. And they showed me that they tried. But it didn't go to you guys. Now I'm bringing it to you guys if nobody else is. I want to see what's done. I want to see what's just. I want to see if that material was supposed to go to White Feather Landfill, let's see it go there. Let's see a floodplain that blocks 35 acres of land. Let's see that not harm other people's properties. Vaughn, I'm in your township. I lost my house, okay, in that flood last June 23rd. I know what it's like to be homeless. When it comes to people that harmed my family, and they raise property levels, water, because they just think they're above the law, that harms everybody around them. You don't know the thousands of people these people can be affecting by blocking off 35 acres. I mean, the people I know that are with agriculture and stuff, this is unheard of. You know, to get away for 3 years, or since 2013, with doing such. The DEQ estimates them moving 15,000 yards of dirt out of the floodplain. 15,000 yards of dirt. Think of what that had cost them at a landfill, but think of what it puts in their pocket. And think of what it takes away from the poor family. Yeah, it's
Commissioner
disturbing.
Krieger.
So, Mr. Eddy, I mean, we know each other. This is the first time that I've heard of what you're describing, and I will work with you. And I think what we need to do is, obviously, the DEQ district in Bay County hasn't served your cause very well. I think what we need to do is we'll take a road trip to Lansing, and we'll find out where the ball was dropped. But back to these 35 acres of property. The 35 acres is what you're telling me this stuff was dumped into?
The 35 acres is blocked off floodplain that would not allow the river to backflow. That's what the DEQ's floodplain specialist, Joy Brooks, their engineer, has had figured, that allows the Caucahoun River not to recede naturally.
Okay.
Due to this berm, they took away our riparian rights, and we no longer flow naturally. Well, in the state of Michigan, you have a 15-year riparian rights where if somebody changes that, you get it back. Well, the threats that came to me and my family that were recorded, everything that's happened has came true. They're going to tie us up in court for as long as, you know, we have money. Tell your wife we're going to spend her money, you know.
So the berm then that you're talking about, this 35-acre berm.
No, that's about over a half-mile long.
And that was deposits of?
That was deposits of spoils from S.C. Johnson and multiple other oil field
So it wasn't
spots.
designated as a disposable site?
That is correct, Ernie. Not a disposal site, not a landfill. Never was, never should be.
All right. When this is all done today, I will find you, we'll sit down, we'll talk.
I appreciate it. It's just something that it's been a deadhead, and it shouldn't be. I have enough information to where we should be looking for landfill slips. We should be making sure that the stuff that was manufactured on that property, such as Agent Orange, thorium, through the years, and many other chemicals, we should know where they went. We should know where their leaching ends.
Well, how
I
they
mean, we
can
should.
move- How they can move this material from one site to another is mind-boggling. If it
It's-
was not already a confined disposal.
Miss Laura Olgar has asked the DEQ, and I've looked at those emails she shared with me, where are they going? And she's been deadheaded. You know, and I can't say that I feel she hasn't tried or Jim hasn't tried, but when it comes to them asking questions at the Department of Environmental Quality, it's the same thing if I'm going there. They just don't want to stop. Terry Camp from News 12, he called there trying to get information. He told me, he goes, something just don't feel right,
So
you know.
you have a court action going on right now?
I have a court action going on against multiple contractors and the people who blocked the floodplain. Both the corporation and myself, due to the threats, have an action, and then my mom and brothers for title to the property because somebody took the title from them. So due to having a title company tell you you have to quiet title and sue them for the property they took, I think the title company called it stolen property. That's what I'd like to call it because that's what I feel happened.
On the threats that's been made against you and your family, have those been talked with, let's say, the sheriff's office?
Not the Bay County Sheriff's Office, no. It has been with the state police.
And the state police wouldn't take any action?
The state police said that this is a civil problem, and I do not even know that they recorded them. The whistleblower that was given his information to the DEQ, Officer Dan Lee, like 6 months after I give it to him, he'd said he didn't even read it, or didn't even listen to the voice recording. So it's pretty hard when you take something to law enforcement, when you have somebody talking about the areas this contamination came from, and they don't want to talk about it. Same thing if Jim called. I think Jim was involved with calling Dan Lee. Officer Larry DeSluver of the DNR, who lives right next to Eddie Brothers, has been vocal to his fellow officers and the DEQ. So I've got those interviews where the DEQ printed them for me. This is nothing I'm making up. This is real. This is something that we can't look at what contractors are doing to this county if they're looking to spread the landfills all over. It's not right. It's not morally correct. If they're dumping it under highways, if they're dumping it under streets, we need to know where they're putting it. It's only morally correct.
All right.
Commissioner
Thank
Coonan,
you.
you were next.
Early on, you mentioned something about public information being transferred from whether it's the county buildings or the historical society. And I would think that regardless of who's storing it, it should be accessible to the public. And you're saying that you've tried to get that information and you can't?
Yes, and all that I brought you guys was my emails. Whoever deals with the Bay County Historical Society, I'd like them to show you the letters and the times that I've tried. This is a copy for all of you, along with Jim and Amber, to show you guys there's major issues going on at the Historical Society. And just 2 days ago, the lady at the GIS department told me they're just not forthcoming with information. It's like they don't feel it's their job to give it to you. Well, that's tough for me to take when I can see that in here there's a contract with the county for their tax records that how's this? It's shareable. It is researchable. I love to research history. I think I should be able to go to the Wirt Library, honestly, and see all these. I do. I don't think it should be at the Historical Society in a vault or wherever they have it.
Now,
I
do we know for a fact that that information that gets sent to the Historical Society, that the public has no access to it, or doesn't have reasonable access to that? Is that something?
It'll be explained right in here.
Yeah, I know, but maybe somebody has a quick answer.
It depends on what document is given. I don't know, to be honest with you, as we sit here right now, the exact language of the contract. Most of the information that's given over to the Historical Society is information that's no longer considered public information subject to FOIA by the county, because we have a model records retention policy at the policy that's approved by the Office of the Great Seal. Pursuant to that model records retention policy, after a certain number of years, if the document's no longer required to be stored, the county has the option, a couple of options. We can either destroy the document. If it's a document of historical significance, we can donate it to the Historical Society for use and preservation, or we can scan in some of the information. I know you're aware, for instance, with the Register of Deeds, within the last 2 to 3 years, they've undergone a pretty lengthy process of making sure all of their plat books are scanned in so they can be preserved, just because of the fact that paper documents sometimes don't stand the test of time. But for the most part, any information that's turned over to the Historical Society is something that we're no longer required to keep under the model records retention policy, and once it leaves our custody and control, it's no longer subject to FOIA. I think that may be something of what's happening here.
I think the contract, Amber, that's in what I've given you, requests that it be able to be researched or the contract be void. And I would like to see the Bay County Historical Society lose all interest in that stuff, and I think it should go to the Wirt Library, is my opinion. I think that what I seen and what I viewed when I went there were the most pristine books, so well kept. Why hide something like that from the public? I mean, these are beautiful. I mean, honestly, these are historical relics that are polished and so beautiful. I think when you go into the library, it would be a beautiful addition to it. There's nothing shameful of them. They are part of history of this county. I think it should be something that everybody has access to. It's not something that should be in a dungeon.
Commissioner Harris, I think you were next.
Yeah, I listened to I'm going to piggyback on what Commissioner Coonan said, and I know I see people, including two of my older brothers, which they show up at the clerk's office once a week and they pour through their books down there. They bring out the big books, and not only them, there's a lot of people that put on and just sit at a table and pour through the books, and I know that my brother, who is one of the biggest history guys that anybody would ever meet, he also had same thing what you're saying. He loved to go in the basement of the museum. He's been denied access over and over and over and over and over, and just, he finally gave up. And I agree with what you're saying, that it's something that we'll look into, obviously, but it seems like public record. If it's public record, it's public record. But I also listen to what our attorney says also, so.
And I understand.
It should be looked at.
I think once you read through that stuff there that I've presented to you that was furnished to me with your contract with them, I feel their contract's void if you read it and look at what I think Ed Rivette signed right there, along with Eric Gila, who was the president then. I firmly believe that they should be sharing all of that documentation without fighting. They overcharged my family's attorney for it by $640, because on here it says research, $5 for the first hour, $4 for every hour thereafter. Their cost was $17.21. Well, how come I wasn't treated like the average citizen? That's not right. Why? Why? Because they didn't want to give them up. That would have saved me $40,000 in attorney fees had they just give up that information when it was originally asked for, because they transferred property through a tax legal. And all that I needed to do was prove that that was a tax legal. The title company says they don't convey land off tax legals. The surveyor, we don't convey land off tax legals. What was the property at Eddy Brothers? It was conveyed off a tax legal written by Bill Darby. Bill Darby admitted they were tax legals. I can't help but to feel this is his mistake, and these are ways to get around me finding that out. And now that I've got it found out, it cost $988. That's not right. Not when my first documents, when I first went there, they didn't know what I was looking for. $10. Wow. If you guys got the next few years, I proved this whole case. So I wanted the next few years. Oh, you can't get them, Mr. Eddy. Really? I tried. I went to their meetings, and then I was told I wasn't welcome to their meetings anymore, you know, because why? I'm asking for some information that might help my family and do what's right in the court system. I want the truth and honesty to come out. I'm not here to lie to anybody. I want what's deserved by my family, and what's deserved by them is a real description, and we have title work to show the real description. But due to this, the judge made a wrong decision, and we had to appeal it because the judge didn't know this information that was here at the Bay County Historical Society. Had he seen that, hands down, you can't convey property off a tax legal. I'd have been able to prove it because the Bay County Historical Society had those records. And both Caucallan Township and the Treasurer's Office sent me there to get them. But when your county's sending you there to get them, and then you're blocked at that place, and then you find a contract. I just got this contract 2 weeks ago. That's disturbing that you guys actually had a commission that went for it and said, hey, as long as you guys do this and take care of the researchers, you can have those records. If you don't, we're going to get them back. So I think we should have them back. And I mean the community. I don't think that they're community researchable right now. And I think that not everybody knows how to run a computer. But you know what? Everybody knows how to run a book.
Mr. Barsha?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to thank you, Brad, for bringing your concerns before the entire commission. Say that as to the commissioners and to those in the room that we first began discussions about a year ago, wasn't it? I think,
yeah.
Mr. Eddy, and I did speak with Mr. Lee, and it seemed that, and now he's officially retired from the DEQ, I believe, or was planning on retiring.
I can believe it.
As the author of the Whistleblower Protection Act, that resonated with me. And during my discussions with him, he seemed to indicate that he agreed with your assessment that contractors were definitely at fault for some of the contamination that occurred unnecessarily and could be held legally liable, financially liable. And I want to say that you've done meticulous research on your issues. In addition, you've lived it. So, you know what you're talking about. And I have to, along on Mrs. Ogar, or Ms. Ogar is not here today. She's out of the county. However, she and I have discussed this at great length, and we've both been frustrated by the response we've gotten from the Department of Environmental Quality. And it just seems that it's, we're looking into it. Yes, it's a pending open investigation. We can't talk with you about it. However, I think Commissioner Krieger's suggestion that, perhaps a visit to the DEQ in Lansing might help, I would be willing also to attend. When I was on the Senate Appropriations Committee, served on the subcommittee of 3 that developed the DEQ budget. So while many of the staff have left, some are still there that I worked with, and that probably is the next level. What's that?
I will make the call tomorrow.
Okay. But I think you deserve answers. You've been more than patient.
I have.
And this has been going on a long time. Yeah.
I tried bidding a contract for the water dredging on the Caucallan River, and I was very disturbed to find that just my presence brought a Bay County sheriff to the presence at a contractor meeting. Glenn Rowley told me that. That disturbs me because I don't know what I've done, other than I'm trying to dig up what I can on this issue at hand, and I turned in a FOIA to the Sheriff's Department yesterday to try to find out. I want to know who and why there had to be a sheriff present, and who kept looking at me while I'm videotaping this meeting. It seemed like I was supposed to be intimidated. Now, it did. It intimidated me. Why are you here for me? I walk out and I talk to Carrie Wardinsky, and Carrie Wardinsky says, Mr. Eddy, he's here for you. Okay. Why? Because I know too much? Why? Because I've investigated this? Why? Because I want to know that we're doing the right thing? This came out of Bangor Township's, one of Bangor Township's facilities. We need to know that that was all due diligence when that material was moved from Bangor Township into Calcallan Township.
Commissioner Krieger, you had more?
Yeah, I find it ironic that here you're having threats against your family, but yet you go to an open meeting and the police are brought to there.
Carrie Wardinsky told me, and I recorded it, that,
It's just
and Glenn Rowley even
It is
said,
bizarre.
yes, it is, it's disturbing. How would you like it?
I wouldn't.
Commissioner Begic?
I just want to say, I'm sorry about your house. Did you get any help from FEMA or get some help on it?
It's been a nightmare. FEMA is one of the worst organizations to have deal with you, and so is the SBA. You name it, if it's a governmental organization trying to help, they need help themselves. It's the most disorganized thing, and they show up with the state police and a whole bunch of black Suburbans, and they don't even want to come in your house to see the hurt, to see what you've lost. I have zero respect for FEMA. I'm thankful that they made it into a disaster declaration, but at the same time, when you got flood insurance, your house should be covered. I was on Noah's Ark in Kentucky when I lost my house. I don't know how ironic that feels to you guys, but it felt like, come on, God, please clean up this earth. But
thank
we
you.
got cleaned out.
Thank you, and Commissioner Krieger and Mr. Barsha from the administration will be in touch with you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else, public comment? If not, we're going to move forward to petitions and communications. First off, we need a motion to receive from the Director, Department of Criminal Defense, MIDC Plan and Budget.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support, any discussion?
Just had a-
Mr. Lutz.
Yeah, I didn't see any budget information. So we can amend the motion to receive the plan, but there isn't any budget information.
Mr. Begay?
Just wondered where things were at with, I guess it talks about here in the plan, and they want some more information, and have resubmitting budgetary stuff, I guess.
It's my understanding that's actually already
Yeah.
been submitted.
I know Oakland County is having some real problems with their budgetary issues, so. But I guess their lawsuit didn't go through, so.
I think that what they were looking for was further information to justify why our plan required a full-time employee as opposed to a part-time employee from the Sheriff's Department for additional security.
Yeah.
And that was marked where it said change or in the papers that we were given?
Yeah, she actually supplied to the board the application
Yeah.
and the amended application that was actually submitted.
Okay.
Yep.
And hopefully the amendments will suffice in terms of addressing the issue that resulted in the rejection.
Okay. Anyone else questions?
And Mac is sticking to the guns that you said you're gonna fund it. If you don't fund it, we're not gonna do it. So I think that's what we probably should plan to do too, yeah.
I'm not anticipating that they're probably going to be funding a whole lot of additional positions at this point, but that was expected.
Commissioner Coonan?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion on this where the state probably isn't going to fund it, or to a certain extent, but we still have to come up with a plan. And at some point in time, hopefully that plan will give them what they need to help fund it, because we're looking at people here, and we all know that maybe some indigent folks don't get the proper service that they need. And so we have to look at that perspective as well. But this is just the plan that was resubmitted to Lansing in order to hopefully get some dollars to implement this. And I think we've already done it.
Yeah, well, at this point in time, I don't think that they had any issue with the concept of the plan. I think their only issue was that justification of why do you need a full-time instead of a part-time, and I believe that there was also a clerical issue with addition in the first one. So yeah, absolutely. Our plan was submitted on time, and our actual office that we have at this point in time, as Andrea stated previously, is actually much farther ahead than most of the other counties in the state.
Commissioner Carey.
I believe I saw that there's very few counties that have a plan that's been, actually, the whole thing approved.
Correct.
You know, and I know that, like you said, Andrea said that, I've spoken with her, and she said that she's worked with a regional representative in order to, you know, to tweak the numbers on the financial part of it. And I think it's probably going to be fine, but I think as far as that goes, we're way, like you said, we're way ahead of many other counties in the state of Michigan. You know, probably the bulk of them, like I think that, you know, like Oakland County's probably done, and maybe Macomb, but very few, like 3 or 4 are only done so far. So I think we're above the curve, way above the curve. So I think we're doing well.
Okay, we have a motion to receive on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item B, from Office of Assigned Counsel, first on the agenda, December 2017 report. Motion to receive.
So
Support.
We have motion and support to receive the December report. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 2, 2017 year-to-date report. Motion
Move to receive. So moved.
Support.
We have motion and support. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item C, from the Personnel Director, vacancies. We're also going to add 4, item number 4. We'll take these all at the same time.
So moved.
Sheriff Department, 2 on-call cook position. We have motion, support.
you got it.
Motion and support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. D, from Supervisor of Buildings and Grounds, softball contract. What's your pleasure?
So moved.
Support.
We have motion and support. Discussion, gentlemen. Commissioner Krieger.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So we've been doing the ball diamonds for 10 years, correct?
Probably more than 10 years, but at least 10 years.
And that involves doing the infield as well as cutting the grass
Correct.
Inside?
Anything inside of the fence lines.
inside. And I guess my question is, it would be nice if I could see how much the county has been reimbursed over these years in comparison to what it's costing us to have somebody go there to do the diamond and cut the grass on the inside.
I can provide you with a 10-year printout, but I can tell you they pay dollar for dollar. So every dollar we expend, including indirect costs, is charged back to them at the end of the year, and they reimburse us for every single dollar. So if we end up spending $20,000 that year, that's their bill. If we end up spending $35,000, maybe they wanted some major repairs, they pay us back that much. So every single dollar they pay us back.
So my question would be, we're not hiring somebody specifically to do that. We're taking it from the individuals we already have on board.
A little bit of both. We have 2 of our guys out at the fairgrounds assist when major things need to happen, but we have some part-time summer seasonal help that come in just for the grass cutting. So the answer would be a little bit of both. And we track the hours of our full-time and we track the hours of our seasonal, and that's all reimbursed, fringes, the whole 9 yards.
The fringe package in there.
Commissioner Coonan.
Thank you. I saw where the former agreement and the current agreement, all the costs are paid for by the softball association.
Correct.
I guess I was kind of curious if we're going to approve a contract change, what were some of the, to accurately reflect current duties and responsibilities? I'd like to see what, I mean, if we're going to approve a change in a contract, I'd like to see what the changes are, not, and I see where all the costs are borne by the softball association. I don't have a problem with that. This could be just changing the date on a outdated contract, or what are the duties that have changed or the responsibilities that have changed. I'd like to see that if we're approving.
I can provide you with the old agreements and with the tentative new agreement that we
That's all I'd like to see. And I can see where, you know, it's not costing the county any money, the softball association is paying for it. But if we're going to agree to something, I'd like to see what the changes are.
Sure, we can get you copies of that.
Kristen, weren't some of the changes, I think I looked at an old copy, but where, like, we were doing scheduling and some things that we haven't done in years, but because the contract was so old.
Correct. We had a very old, outdated contract that basically renewed every year. I think the last time it was signed was the early 2000s, and it required us to do volleyball work on the volleyball courts, but and also programming work. We haven't done those in so many years, mainly because at the time that we stopped doing that as a service, I mean, in-kind service, the volleyball folks didn't want to pay for it. They decided to do it themselves, so we completely stopped that service. We haven't been programming in that part for at least probably 10 years, if not longer. I'm not even 100% sure what we ever did in the past, but all of the maintenance that we've been doing since I've been here and even before is essentially staying the same. It's all of the things that we weren't really performing anymore because the contract was old and outdated that have been eliminated from the new contract.
Could you please email all the commissioners a copy of the old?
Sure. Why don't we just put it on the full board, and we can see it on the full board, you know?
Sure.
Very good. Any other questions? Mr. Redmond?
When we did the original contract with the softball association, they wanted all the fields rebuilt with red clay and all fixed up, which was almost $15,000. They reimbursed us for that, and then we insisted upon an agreement where they paid 100% of the cost of anything we did for them. Prior to that, the county was paying for all the maintenance.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that because that's pretty reflective to what's happening. You know, we're not paying anything, they're paying it. It's just that if something's changed, if you were to sign a contract or a new contract, I guess you'd like to see what the changes were.
Yep. Okay, we got a motion and support. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. From the Director of Department on Aging, Service Coordination Agreement with Golden Horizons.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 2, acceptance of grant and donations.
So moved.
Support.
Motion and support. Any discussion? Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Referrals, we don't have any. Unfinished business? New business? Commissioner Lutz, good to hear from you.
In the handout documentation that was given us today by Mr. Eddy, there's Resolution 2000-92. And attached to Resolution 2092 is the agreement that was signed by the county. And under the purpose, if you look at page A1, purpose, it's got in the last line, the last five words, to be available locally to researchers. If you go down to under BCHS responsibilities, Under C, it says provide appropriate storage for and make records available to the public under the research guidelines of the BCHS within a suitable timetable based on BCHS's current workload, library reorganization, project status, and donation size. So I guess I'd like administration and corporate counsel to find out if they're actually following through with this agreement, if not, nullify.
It's, just to respond briefly, I actually did highlight the portion that you noted. This is the first time I've seen this contract. It was entered into back in 2001, and I believe it was amended in 2003 for a 10-year period, so it expired in 2013. And it does deal with the model records retention policy. The treasurer is required to keep tax records for a certain period of time in a records repository. After a certain number of years, it can be donated, and then it's subject to the Bay County Historical Society's rules and regulations. There is on the back of the handout that we received from Mr. Eddy, to use our resources guideline from the Bay County Historical Society that sets forth the timetable that they're going to provide documents and the fees that they're going to charge. I believe that that's what was referenced as it related to the $5 for the first hour, $4 for every hour thereafter to the nearest quarter hour, as well as the postage fees and photocopy fees. So this is the schedule that was provided by Historical Society that I think that Mr. Eddy is indicating that they did comply with. It just turned out to be quite expensive based on the nature of the request. But I absolutely will look into it to see whether or not they're still complying with the current guidelines.
Anything else?
If I could just make one comment, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Barsha, yes.
To Mr. Eddy, I know I can't probably call you back up here, but have you been in touch with Mr. Bagicalupo, who replaced Mr. Bloomfield? The last contact you had was with Mr. Bloomfield?
No, Mr.
Bagicalupo? That was the same response? Well, we'll definitely look into it.
Announcements.
Move to adjourn.
Just a minute here, I have a few. April the 11th, just a reminder, Bay Future annual meeting at Doubletree. April the 28th, Pinconning Food Pantry Golf Outing. Mayor Scholarship Fund, May the 4th, that's a Friday night in Pinconning. Rotary Festival, Pinconning Rotary Festival, Saturday, May the 5th. A lot of stuff going on up north. Mr. Barsha.
Just one last announcement. Sorry, I've interjected so many times. Some good news. The House of Representatives passed legislation that for veterans activity centers in the state, which commend the board for supporting Keith Markstrom and the Soldiers and Sailors Relief Fund. A $25,000 grant. Haven't determined yet on the statutory language, and the Senate may amend it, whether it would be an annual grant or a one-time grant. In addition, there'd be a stipend to the county for each veteran that resides in Bay County on top of the $25,000 grant that Bay County and other counties that undertake activities for veterans would be automatically eligible for. So hopefully that will pass the state Senate, and that will be a little infusion of resources into what Mr. Markstrom and the board is trying to do to provide greater outreach and help and assistance to our great veterans population in Bay County.
Commissioner Krieger.
Move to adjourn.
Support.
All those in favor? Done. Thank you.